The morning sun barely touched the windows of Kensington Palace when Kate received the phone call that would change everything. Her hands trembled as she set down the receiver, the doctor's words echoing in her mind like a cruel whisper. The cancer had returned more aggressive than before, and this time there would be no miracle cure. William found her standing motionless in their private sitting room, still wearing her silk nightgown, tears streaming down her face. He didn't need to ask what the call was about. The look in her eyes told him everything. Without a word, he crossed the room and pulled her into his arms, feeling her body shake against his chest as years of careful royal composure finally crumbled. "How long?" he whispered into her hair, his voice barely audible. 6 months, maybe less," Kate replied, her voice breaking on each word. "The children?" "William, how do we tell the children?" For 23 years they had faced everything together. From their university days at St. Andrews to their fairy tale wedding watched by billions, through the birth of their 3 children, and the weight of royal duty that pressed down on their shoulders every single day. They had weathered scandals, family feuds, and the constant scrutiny of the world's media. But this enemy was different. This was something even their love couldn't conquer. William pulled back to look at her face, memorizing every detail as if seeing her for the first time. The way her green eyes sparkled even through tears. The small scar above her left eyebrow from a childhood accident she had told him about during their early dating days. The laugh lines that had deepened over their years of marriage and parenthood. "We'll face this like we've faced everything else," he said, his thumb gently wiping away her tears. "Together! Whatever time we have left, we'll make it count for something beautiful." Kate nodded, drawing strength from his steady presence. She had always been the practical one in their relationship, the one who planned ahead and thought through every detail. But now, facing the unthinkable, she felt lost and small. The woman who had gracefully stepped into the role of future queen, who had raised 3 royal children while maintaining her own charitable work and public duties, suddenly felt like the uncertain young woman who had fallen in love with a prince all those years ago. "I want to see the ocean one more time," she said suddenly, surprising them both with the request. "Remember our honeymoon in Seychelles? How we walked on the beach at sunset and you said you could stay there forever?" William smiled through his own tears, remembering that perfect evening when they had been just William and Catherine, not the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge. No cameras, no protocol, no royal duties, just 2 people deeply in love, planning a future that seemed unlimited and bright. "We'll go anywhere you want," he promised. "We'll do everything you've ever dreamed of." Outside their window, London was waking up to another ordinary day. People were rushing to work, children were walking to school, and the world continued spinning as if nothing had changed. But inside the walls of Kensington Palace, time had suddenly become the most precious thing in the universe. Every moment, every breath, every heartbeat was now counted and treasured. Kate walked to the window and looked out at the gardens where their children had learned to ride bicycles, where they had hosted countless garden parties for charity, where she had found peace during the most challenging moments of royal life. Soon all of this would continue without her. William would have to carry on alone, raising their children, serving the crown, living the life they had built together. "Promise me something," she said, still looking out at the garden. "Promise me that when I'm gone you'll find happiness again. You'll let yourself love again." William's sharp intake of breath made her turn around. His face had gone pale and she could see the fear in his eyes. "Don't say that," he whispered. "We're not there yet. We have time. Promise me, William." Her voice was stronger now, filled with the determination that had carried her through decades of public service. "I won't spend my last months worrying about you spending the rest of your life alone. Our children need you to be whole, not broken." The conversation was interrupted by small footsteps in the hallway and the sound of their youngest daughter calling for her mother. They both took a deep breath, wiped their eyes, and prepared to face the most difficult part of this new reality. Protecting their children's innocence for as long as possible, while slowly preparing them for the unthinkable. 3 weeks had passed since the devastating diagnosis, and Kate had made a decision that shocked the entire royal household. She wanted to continue her public duties for as long as possible, but with one important change: she would speak openly about what she was facing. The palace advisors were horrified. The Queen was concerned, but William stood firmly beside his wife's choice. "The public has supported us through everything," Kate explained to the emergency family meeting called at Buckingham Palace. "They deserve honesty. not carefully crafted statements that dance around the truth. If I'm going to leave this world, I want to do it with dignity and purpose. King Charles, himself no stranger to health battles, looked at his daughter-in-law with deep admiration. He had watched her grow from a nervous young woman thrust into the spotlight to one of the most beloved members of the royal family. Her grace under pressure had always impressed him, but this level of courage was extraordinary. The media will be ruthless, he warned gently. Every public appearance will be scrutinized. Every photograph will be analyzed for signs of weakness. Kate smiled, the same radiant smile that had charmed the world for over 2 decades. Then we'll give them something worth photographing. Joy, love, hope, even in the darkest moments. The first public appearance after her announcement was at a children's hospital in London, one of her longtime charitable causes. The media frenzy was unlike anything the royal family had experienced before. Photographers and reporters from around the world gathered outside the hospital. But what they captured was not what anyone expected. Kate arrived looking stunning in a soft blue dress, her signature brunette hair perfectly styled despite the chemotherapy she had begun. But it was her interaction with the children that created the images that would be remembered forever. She sat on the floor with a 7-year-old boy named Tommy, who was fighting leukemia, reading him stories and laughing at his jokes as if she had all the time in the world. "Are you scared?" Tommy asked her with the innocent directness that only children possess. Kate paused, considering her answer carefully. "Sometimes," she replied honestly. "But do you know what I do when I'm scared?" Tommy shook his head, his eyes wide with curiosity. "I think about all the people I love and all the beautiful things I've seen in my life. That makes the scary feelings smaller." The photographers captured this moment through the window, and the image would later appear on the front page of newspapers around the world. But they also captured something else. The way William watched his wife from across the room. His love and admiration so intense it was almost painful to witness. After the hospital visit, William and Kate took an unscheduled walk through Hyde Park. It was something they hadn't done in years without a full security detail and carefully planned route. But today, they just wanted to be a couple taking a walk together. People recognized them immediately, but instead of the usual requests for selfies and formal interactions, something different happened. Strangers approached them with tears in their eyes, offering words of support and love. An elderly woman named Margaret, who had been married for 62 years before losing her husband, took Kate's hands in hers. "Love is the only thing that matters in the end, dear," she said softly. "Everything else is just noise." A young mother pushed her baby stroller over to them and said, "Your love story gave me hope when I was going through my divorce. It showed me that real love exists. Thank you for sharing that with us." These encounters, captured by the ever-present photographers, showed a side of royal life that the public rarely saw. The formal barriers seemed to dissolve as people connected with William and Kate not as royals, but as a couple facing the ultimate test of their love. That evening, back at Kensington Palace, Kate sat in her private study writing letters. She had decided to write personal notes to each of her children for important future moments. Graduations, weddings, the births of their own children. It was heart-wrenching work, but she found comfort in imagining being present for these milestones through her words. William found her there at midnight, surrounded by dozens of sealed envelopes, each marked with a different occasion and date in the future. Charlotte's first heartbreak, he read from one envelope, then picked up another. George's university graduation. Kate looked up at him with tears in her eyes, but also with peace on her face. "They'll need their mother's advice someday, even if I can't be there to give it in person." William sat down beside her and picked up a pen. "Then we'll write them together. Every letter, every piece of advice, every word of love they'll need to carry them through life." They worked together through the night, planning for a future they would not share, but ensuring their children would never doubt how deeply they were loved. Outside, the world slept, unaware that inside Kensington Palace 2 people were pouring their hearts onto paper, creating a legacy of love that would transcend death itself. The decision came to Kate during a sleepless night in early November. She had been staring at the ceiling, listening to William's peaceful breathing beside her when the idea formed in her mind with startling clarity. She wanted to return to St. Andrews, to the place where their love story began one last time. "It's where we learned who we really were," she explained to William over breakfast the next morning. Not Prince William and Catherine Middleton. Just Will and Kate, two university students figuring out life together. William's eyes filled with understanding and something deeper, gratitude that even now, facing the unthinkable, Kate was thinking about them, about their story, about preserving the beautiful memories they had created together. The trip to Scotland was arranged with unusual secrecy. The palace staff were told it was a private family retreat, but only a handful of people knew the real reason behind the journey. Kate's health had declined noticeably in recent weeks. The chemotherapy had taken its toll, and she tired more easily now. But her spirit remained unbroken, burning bright even as her body grew weaker. They arrived at St. Andrews on a gray afternoon that perfectly matched Kate's memories of their university days. The ancient stone buildings looked exactly the same, weathered and dignified, holding centuries of secrets and love stories within their walls. Students hurried past with backpacks and coffee cups just as they had 25 years ago. "Do you remember the first time you spoke to me?" Kate asked as they walked slowly across the courtyard where they had first met. William laughed, the sound carrying across the empty space. "You told me my art history essay was impressively wrong about the Renaissance period." "You looked so offended," Kate giggled, the sound younger and lighter than it had been in months. "I thought you might never speak to me again. I went back to my room and rewrote the entire thing, just hoping you'd read it and realize I wasn't completely hopeless." They found their way to the small cafe where they had spent countless hours studying together, arguing about everything from politics to poetry, falling in love without even realizing it was happening. The owner, now an elderly woman named Mrs. McLeod, recognized them immediately despite the years that had passed. "My goodness," she breathed. "Little Kate and William. I always wondered what happened to you two." Kate and William exchanged glances, remembering how they had tried so hard to be normal students, to hide William's true identity for as long as possible. They had succeeded for almost a full year before the media attention became impossible to ignore. "We got married," William said simply, and Mrs. McLeod's face broke into a delighted smile. "I always knew you would. The way you looked at each other across these tables, pure magic." It was. They ordered the same drinks they had always shared, tea for Kate, coffee for William, and sat at the corner table where they had spent so many afternoons. The cafe was mostly empty, and for a few precious hours, they were able to pretend they were just that young couple again, with their whole lives stretching out ahead of them full of possibilities. "If you could go back and change anything, would you?" Kate asked, her fingers intertwined with his across the small table. William considered the question seriously. "I would have told you I loved you sooner. I wasted so much time being afraid of what loving you meant, what it would do to your life." Kate shook her head. "Every moment happened exactly as it was supposed to. Even this." She gestured to herself, to the situation they found themselves in. "We've had a beautiful love story, William. Not everyone gets 25 years of happiness like we've had." Later that evening, they walked along the beach where they had taken so many late-night strolls during their university years. The North Sea stretched out endlessly before them, dark and mysterious under the cloudy sky. Kate had bundled up in William's old university sweater, the one she used to steal from his room when they were dating. "I need to tell you something," Kate said as they paused to watch the waves crash against the shore. "I'm not afraid anymore. These past few months I've felt more alive than I have in years. Knowing that every moment is precious makes everything more beautiful." William stopped walking and turned to face her. In the dim light of the street lamps, she looked ethereal, like something precious that might disappear if he blinked too hard. "I need you to know that loving you has been the greatest privilege of my life," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Being your husband, raising our children with you, building a life together. It's been better than any fairy tale." Kate reached up and touched his face, her hand cold from the ocean breeze, but her touch warm with love. "Promise me something else. Promise me you'll come back here sometimes when you miss me too much to bear. Come back and remember how it felt to be young and in love and believe that anything was possible." They stood there on the beach where their love story began, holding each other as the waves crashed around them, neither wanting to let go of this perfect moment. Somewhere in the distance, a photographer with a long lens captured their silhouette. Against the gray sky, two figures clinging to each other as if they could stop time itself through the power of their love. The image would later become one of the most iconic, photographs ever taken of the royal family, not because of its technical perfection, but because it captured something raw and real and heartbreakingly beautiful. It showed the world that even princes and princesses face the same ultimate human experiences: love, loss, and the precious fragility of time. December arrived with an unusual warmth that felt like nature's gift to Kate during her final weeks. The doctors had been honest. The treatments were no longer working, and it was time to focus on comfort rather than cure. Kate had accepted this news with the same grace she had shown throughout her entire ordeal, but William could see the fear hiding behind her brave smile. The children knew now. The conversation had been the hardest thing either parent had ever done. 16-year-old George had tried to be strong, asking practical questions about funeral arrangements and his future role as heir. 14-year-old Charlotte had cried inconsolably before declaring she would never forgive God for taking their mother away. 10-year-old Louis had simply climbed into Kate's lap and refused to let go for 3 hours. "Mummy's body is very sick," Kate had explained gently. "But my love for you will never, ever be sick. That will live in your hearts forever." Now, as Christmas approached, Kate made a decision that surprised everyone. She wanted to spend the holiday at Anmer Hall, their private residence in Norfolk, with just the immediate family. No royal traditions, no formal dinners, no cameras or protocols. Just a mother and father with their children, celebrating what they all knew would be their last Christmas together. William watched Kate carefully as she moved slowly around the kitchen, insisting on making her traditional Christmas biscuits despite her weakness. She had lost a significant amount of weight, and her once lustrous hair was now covered by a silk scarf, but her determination remained fierce. "You don't have to do this," he said gently, taking the mixing bowl from her trembling hands. "Yes, I do," Kate replied firmly. "This is what mothers do. We make Christmas magical for our children no matter what." Charlotte appeared in the doorway, having been drawn by the familiar scent of vanilla and cinnamon. For a moment she looked like the little girl who used to help her mother bake, but the sadness in her eyes reminded everyone of how much had changed. "Can I help?" Charlotte asked quietly. Kate's face lit up with joy. "Of course, darling. You always were the best at decorating." They worked together in comfortable silence, 3 generations of women connected by love and the bittersweet knowledge that these moments were numbered. George and Louis eventually joined them, and soon the kitchen was filled with laughter as they attempted to decorate gingerbread houses that kept collapsing. "Yours looks like it survived an earthquake." "Dad?" Louis giggled, pointing at William's lopsided creation. "It's architecturally innovative," William defended with mock seriousness, causing everyone to burst into laughter. Kate caught William's eye across the kitchen island, and they shared a moment of pure happiness. This was what she had wanted: normal family chaos, silly jokes, flour in everyone's hair, and the sound of their children laughing. Not the formal royal Christmas they had endured for years, but something real and precious and theirs. That evening, after the children had gone to bed, Kate and William sat by the fire in their living room. The Christmas tree twinkled in the corner, decorated with ornaments the children had made over the years alongside expensive royal heirlooms. It was a perfect representation of their life together, grand and humble, formal and intimate, all at the same time. "I've been thinking about what you said about finding love again," William said quietly. Breaking the peaceful silence, Kate turned to look at him, seeing the pain and confusion in his eyes. "I don't know how to love anyone but you," he continued. "We've been together since we were teenagers. You're not just my wife, you're part of who I am." Kate reached for his hand, her fingers now so thin that her wedding ring slipped around loosely. "Love isn't a limited resource, William. The love you have for me won't disappear if you find room in your heart for someone else. It will just make you capable of loving even more deeply." "How can you be so wise about this?" William asked, his voice breaking slightly. "How can you talk about me being with someone else like it doesn't break your heart?" Kate was quiet for a long moment, watching the flames dance in the fireplace. "Because I love you more than I love my own jealousy. Because I want you to have 50 more years of happiness, not 50 years of loneliness. Because our children deserve a father who shows them that love is stronger than loss." William lifted their joined hands to his lips and kissed her fingers gently. "You're teaching me how to let go even when I don't want to." "I'm teaching you that holding on and letting go can happen at the same time," Kate corrected. "You'll always have our love, our memories, our children. But you'll also have space for new joy, new adventures, new reasons to smile. They talked long into the night about everything and nothing. Memories from their early days together. Hopes for their children's futures, silly inside jokes that would die with Kate but live forever in William's heart. As dawn approached, Kate fell asleep in William's arms on the sofa, and he held her there, unwilling to wake her, watching her peaceful face and memorizing every detail. The butler found them there in the morning, and the image, photographed discreetly by palace staff and later shared with the world, would become another iconic moment. The future King of England holding his sleeping wife like she was the most precious thing in the universe, which to him she absolutely was. Christmas morning brought the joy and chaos that Kate had hoped for. The children opened presents with enthusiasm, and for a few hours illness and sadness were forgotten in favor of wrapping paper fights and new toy demonstrations. Kate managed to eat a small breakfast and even beat Louis at a video game, much to his delighted surprise. But as the day wore on, her energy faded, and she spent the afternoon resting on the sofa while her family played board games around her. She didn't participate much, but she watched everything with a smile, storing up these final memories like treasures she could take with her wherever she was going. January brought a bitter cold that seemed to settle deep in Kate's bones. The doctors had moved her to a private wing at the London hospital, where she could receive round-the-clock care while still maintaining some privacy for her family. The room was filled with flowers from well-wishers around the world, creating a garden of love and support that bloomed even in the depths of winter. Kate had insisted on one last public appearance, a video message to the nation that she wanted to record while she still had the strength. The palace communications team had prepared a formal script, but Kate put it aside and spoke from her heart instead. "My dear friends," she began, looking directly into the camera with eyes that still sparkled despite her obvious weakness. "I want to thank you for the extraordinary love you've shown my family during this difficult time. Your letters, your prayers, your kindness, they have been a light in our darkest moments." She paused to gather her strength, and William, standing just out of camera range, felt his heart break a little more. Even now, facing the end, she was thinking of others, trying to comfort the millions of people around the world who had come to love her. "I need you to know that I am not afraid," Kate continued, her voice growing stronger with conviction. "I have been blessed with a beautiful life and extraordinary love, and 3 amazing children who will carry the best parts of me forward into the future. That is more than most people ever dare to hope for." The video ended with Kate's signature smile, the one that had charmed the world for over 2 decades, and when it was released that evening, it broke viewing records across every platform, but more importantly, it showed the world how to face the unthinkable with dignity and grace. Prince Harry arrived from California that weekend, putting aside years of family tension to be with his brother during this impossible time. When he walked into Kate's hospital room, she was propped up in bed reading a book, looking so fragile that he had to steady himself against the doorframe. "Hello, Harry," she said softly, setting down her book and reaching out her hand to him. Harry crossed the room quickly and took her hand in both of his, tears already streaming down his face. "I'm so sorry, Kate. I'm sorry for everything, the distance, the arguments, the wasted time." Kate shook her head gently. "None of that matters now. What matters is that you're here, and that you and William remember your brothers. Promise me you'll take care of each other when I'm gone." The reconciliation between the brothers happened quietly over the next few days, facilitated by Kate's gentle wisdom and her refusal to let old grudges poison the time they had left together. They sat by her bedside, sharing memories and inside jokes, laughing until Kate fell asleep between them, exhausted but peaceful. It was during this time that Kate made her most difficult request. She wanted to say goodbye to each of her children individually, to have private moments with each one where she could share her final words of love and wisdom. George came first, trying so hard to be mature and responsible that Kate's heart ached for the childhood he was losing too soon. They talked about his future role as king, about the importance of compassion and service, about finding his own path even within the constraints of royal duty. Being king isn't about the crown, George, Kate told him, holding his face in her hands. It's about the heart you bring to the job. Your heart is already so beautiful. Never let the world make it smaller. Charlotte was angry and defiant, raging against the unfairness of losing her mother when she needed her most. Kate let her daughter cry and shout, holding her through every wave of grief until Charlotte finally collapsed against her mother's chest. Emotionally exhausted, "I need you to help your father," Kate whispered into Charlotte's hair. "He's going to be lost for a while and he'll need your strength to find his way back to joy. Can you do that for me?" Charlotte nodded against her mother's shoulder, making a promise she wasn't sure she could keep but knowing she would try because her mother had asked. Little Louis was the hardest goodbye of all. At 10 years old, he didn't fully understand what was happening, only that his beloved mummy was getting sicker and everyone around him was sad. Kate held him in her lap, reading him the same bedtime stories she had read to all her children, creating one final perfect memory of mother and son. "Will you visit me in my dreams?" Louis asked innocently, and Kate had to bite her lip to keep from crying. "Every single night," she promised, "and every time you do something kind for someone else, I'll be watching and feeling so proud." The final days passed in a blur of quiet conversations, gentle touches, and the constant presence of family. Kate drifted in and out of consciousness, but whenever she woke, William was there, holding her hand, reading to her, or simply sitting quietly beside her bed. On her last lucid day, Kate asked William to help her to the window, where she could see the London skyline spread out before them. The city was sparkling in the late afternoon sun, millions of people going about their daily lives, unaware that one of the most beloved figures in modern history was preparing to leave them. "It's been a beautiful life," Kate said softly, leaning against William's chest as he supported her. "Thank you for sharing it with me." William pressed his lips to the top of her head, breathing in the faint scent of her perfume that still lingered despite everything they had been through. "Thank you for choosing me," he whispered back. "Thank you for making me better than I ever thought I could be." They stood there together as the sun set over London, two people who had loved each other completely, and were now preparing for the most difficult goodbye of all. Outside the hospital windows, the world continued spinning, but inside that room, time seemed to slow down, giving them these last precious moments to say everything that needed to be said without words. The morning of February 14th arrived with an unusual brightness that seemed to mock the darkness of what was unfolding inside the hospital room. Kate had been unconscious for most of the previous day, her breathing shallow and labored, her hand still clasped tightly in William's despite her weakened state. The children had spent the night at the hospital, sleeping in the family room down the hall, taking turns sitting with their mother throughout the long, difficult hours. The medical team had been honest. It was a matter of hours now, not days. As dawn broke over London, Kate's eyes fluttered open one last time. Her gaze found William immediately, as it had for 25 years whenever she needed her anchor in any storm. He was disheveled, his hair unkempt and his clothes wrinkled from sleeping in the chair beside her bed. But to Kate, he had never looked more handsome. "Happy Valentine's Day," she whispered, her voice barely audible, but carrying the same warmth that had made him fall in love with her all those years ago. William's laugh was half sob, amazed that even now, at the very end, Kate was thinking of their traditions, their shared history, their love. "You remembered?" "I remember everything," Kate replied, her thumb moving weakly against his palm. "Our first Valentine's Day when you gave me that terrible gas station card because you forgot and panicked. Hey, it had a cat on it." "You love cats. I loved you," Kate corrected gently. The cat was just a bonus. The children were called in then, and they gathered around Kate's bed like flowers surrounding the sun. George stood tall and brave, trying to be the man he thought he needed to be. Charlotte held her mother's other hand, her face streaked with tears she had stopped trying to hide. Louis climbed carefully onto the bed, curling up against Kate's side like he had done as a toddler. "I need you all to listen to me very carefully," Kate said, summoning strength from somewhere deep within her love for her children. "What's going to happen today is very sad, and you're going to hurt for a long time. But I need you to remember that love is stronger than death. The love I have for each of you will never, ever go away." She looked at each of her children individually, memorizing their faces one final time. "George, be kind to yourself as you learn to be a leader. Charlotte, never lose that fire in your spirit. The world needs your passion. Louis, keep seeing magic in ordinary things." The family spent the morning together, sharing quiet conversation and comfortable silences. Kate dozed intermittently, but whenever she woke, she found them all still there, keeping vigil with unwavering love and dedication. It was just after 2 p.m. when Kate began to struggle more noticeably. The medical team checked her quietly, then withdrew to give the family privacy. William gathered his children close and explained gently that the time had come to say their final goodbyes. One by one, the children kissed their mother's forehead and whispered their love. Charlotte lingered the longest, whispering promises to take care of her father and brothers. Louis patted Kate's cheek gently and told her he would see her in his dreams. George, fighting tears, simply said, "Thank you for being the best mom in the world." When it was just William and Kate alone, he climbed carefully into the hospital bed beside her, gathering her fragile form into his arms the way he had on their wedding night, on the nights their children were born, on countless ordinary evenings that had made up their extraordinary life together. "I don't know how to do this," William admitted, his voice breaking completely for the first time. "You don't have to know," Kate whispered against his chest. "You just have to trust that love survives everything, even this." They lay together in the soft afternoon light, William stroking Kate's hair and humming the song they had danced to at their wedding 25 years earlier. Kate's breathing grew more labored, but she seemed peaceful, content to be exactly where she was. "William," she said suddenly, her voice stronger than it had been all day. "I'm here, my love. Look at me." William pulled back to meet her eyes, those green eyes that had captivated him since their university days, that had laughed with him through joy and supported him through sorrow, that had looked at him on their wedding day like he was her whole world. "Thank you," Kate said clearly, "for the most beautiful love story anyone could ever hope for." William leaned down and kissed her lips gently, tasting salt from both their tears. "Thank you for saying yes to me all those years ago." Kate smiled one last time, the radiant smile that had become her signature, that had graced magazine covers and state dinners and Christmas mornings and ordinary Tuesday afternoons. Then she closed her eyes and, still smiling, still held in the arms of the man who had loved her completely, Catherine Elizabeth Middleton, the Princess of Wales, slipped peacefully away. William held her for a long time afterward, unwilling to let go, whispering words of love and gratitude into her still hair. Outside the hospital, the world continued to turn, unaware that it had just lost one of its brightest lights. But inside that room, time stood still as the future King of England said goodbye to the love of his life, the mother of his children, the woman who had taught him that even fairy tales could be real if two people loved each other enough. The attending physician noted the time as 2:47 p.m. on February 14th. But for William, time had stopped completely. In the space of a heartbeat, he had gone from husband to widower, from half of a perfect partnership to someone who would have to learn how to be whole again on his own. The world learned of Kate's passing within hours, as news helicopters circled overhead and reporters gathered outside the hospital like mourners at a wake. But inside Kensington Palace, William and his children retreated into a bubble of grief and memory, trying to process the impossible reality that Kate was gone. The days that followed blurred together in a haze of funeral preparations, official statements, and an outpouring of love from around the globe that was unlike anything the royal family had ever experienced. Flowers covered the palace gates 5 feet deep. People from every continent sent letters, gifts, and condolences. World leaders paused their own political dramas to pay tribute to a woman who had touched millions of lives simply by being authentically herself. But for William, the most profound moment came 3 days after Kate's death, when he was alone in their bedroom, surrounded by her clothes and perfume and all the intimate details of a life shared. He found the letter she had written to him, placed on his pillow where he would discover it when he was ready. "My darling William," it began in her familiar handwriting. "If you're reading this, then the hardest part is just beginning. I know you think your heart is broken beyond repair, but I need you to trust me when I tell you that it will heal stronger than before." The letter was 10 pages long, filled with memories, encouragement, and specific instructions for how to help their children through their grief. But it was the ending that brought William to his knees with its simple beauty. Love is not about possession or permanence. It's about gratitude for the time we had and courage to believe in tomorrow. Somewhere out there is a woman who will love our children as her own, who will make you laugh again, who will give you reasons to look forward instead of backward. When you find her, don't feel guilty. Feel grateful that love found you twice in one lifetime. That's not common, my darling. That's miraculous. The funeral was held at Westminster Abbey on a gray March morning that perfectly matched the mood of a grieving nation. World leaders, celebrities, and ordinary citizens who had never met Kate but felt like they knew her gathered to say goodbye. But it was the image of William and his children walking behind Kate's coffin that broke hearts around the world. William had insisted on carrying one of Kate's favorite white roses, and when he placed it on her coffin at the end of the service, photographers captured a moment of such raw grief and love that it became instantly iconic. His face, usually so controlled and composed, showed every emotion he had been holding back: love, loss, gratitude, and the terrible weight of continuing life without his anchor. The children each read something they had written for their mother. George shared a poem about love lasting forever. Charlotte sang a song Kate had taught her as a little girl. Louis, with heartbreaking innocence, simply said, "Mummy, thank you for teaching me how to be brave." As the months passed, William slowly learned to navigate the world without Kate by his side. The children returned to school, though they all carried a sadness that seemed too heavy for their young shoulders. The palace resumed its normal operations, though everyone agreed that something essential was missing. It was 18 months later when William met Sarah, a teacher at Charlotte's school who had helped his daughter through some difficult grief counseling sessions. She was nothing like Kate. Auburn hair instead of brunette, quiet where Kate had been vivacious, practical where Kate had been dreamy. But she was kind to his children, patient with his complicated life, and slowly, carefully, she helped him remember how to smile again. William was terrified of the public reaction when he finally decided to remarry. But the engagement announcement was met with overwhelming support from people who remembered Kate's video message about wanting William to find love again. The wedding was small and private, with only family and close friends present, but the photograph showed a man who had learned to love again without forgetting his first great love. On his wedding day to Sarah, William carried a small photo of Kate in his pocket, along with her wedding ring on a chain around his neck. It wasn't about choosing between past and future, it was about honoring both. Kate had taught him that love multiplies rather than divides, that the heart has infinite capacity for joy if we're brave enough to let it expand. The children flourished under Sarah's gentle care, though they never forgot their mother. Charlotte became a passionate advocate for cancer research. George grew into a thoughtful young man who spoke eloquently about grief and healing. Louis remained the family's source of laughter and light, seeing magic everywhere just as Kate had taught him. Years later, when William was crowned king with Sarah by his side as queen consort, he kept Kate's portrait prominently displayed in his private study. Visitors often commented on how peaceful she looked in the painting, as if she approved of the life that had grown from the ashes of their great love story. The goodbye that had broken the world's heart became, in time, a testament to love's enduring power. Kate's final gift to William and their children wasn't just the memories of their time together, but the permission to believe in happiness again. In teaching them how to let go, she had shown them how to hold on to what truly mattered, not the person, but the love itself, which proved to be as eternal as she had promised. The world never forgot Catherine, Princess of Wales, but more importantly, it never forgot the lesson she taught in her final months. That love is not diminished by death, but transformed into something even more powerful: the courage to begin again,